The world was holding its breath. The message from the stars had arrived only 3 days ago. It was not a message of peace, it was not an invitation. It was a threat. The Galactic Council, a gathering of the most powerful alien empires, had sent words that shook the human heart. They declared that Earth must kneel, Earth must bow, Earth must surrender its freedom and resources, or Earth would be destroyed. In every corner of the planet, screens flashed with the same terrible warning. Some people cried, some prayed, some raged, and some sat in silence. But far above all the noise of the streets, far from the cries of children and the whispers of frightened parents, there was a secret meeting. It was not in the open, not in the daylight. It was hidden deep underground, inside a chamber built during the Cold War, a place designed for leaders to meet if the world ever came close to nuclear fire. Now it was used for something even greater, the survival of the human race. Inside the chamber, the air was heavy. World leaders sat side by side. People who once argued across oceans now sat shoulder to shoulder. Generals, scientists, and advisors filled the long tables. No cameras, no reporters. Only men and women with tired faces and burning eyes. The doors closed. The guards sealed the room, and silence fell. The President of the United States spoke first, his voice low and steady. "They give us 7 days to reply," he said. "If we do not accept their rule, they will strike." The words lingered in the air like poison smoke. A leader from Europe leaned forward. "Can we fight them? Look at their fleets. Look at their weapons. Their power crosses galaxies." Another leader shook his head. "If we surrender once, we surrender forever. We will be slaves, not partners, not friends." The argument began. Voices rose. Hands struck the tables. The chamber filled with anger and fear. A scientist stood slowly. An old woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Listen," she said. "We cannot match their fleets, but we can show them we are not weak. We can show them we are not afraid." The generals turned to her, curious. "What do you mean?" one asked. She looked at them with calm fire. "They think we are dirt. They think we are animals. Let us remind them we are human." The room grew still. The word human carried weight. It was more than blood, more than flesh. It was history, struggle, invention, courage, and rebellion. For thousands of years, humans had fought against stronger enemies, against nature itself, and had survived. Could they survive this too? The discussion stretched on for hours. Plans were drawn on screens. Maps glowed on the walls. Some argued for surrender, saying survival at any cost was better than extinction. Others demanded war, even if it was hopeless. But the silence between their arguments carried the truth. No one wanted to bow. At last, a general spoke, his voice rough and tired. "If we fight them now, we are destroyed. If we kneel, we are destroyed slowly. But if we send a message, a warning of our own, then maybe, just maybe, they will think twice." The scientist nodded, her eyes shining. A warning at hypersonic speed. Faster than their eyes. Faster than their pride. The words lit a spark in the room. An idea that was not surrender, not suicide, but something in between. A test, a gamble, a human move. The leaders looked at one another, their faces pale in the cold light. Finally, the president spoke again. "We will not bow," he said, his voice steady like stone. "We will send them a warning. Not a plea, not a cry, a warning." The decision was made. The fate of Earth was sealed in silence. Above ground, the world carried on. Children went to school. Workers filled the streets. Lovers walked under city lights. But deep below, in that hidden chamber, humanity had taken its first step into a dangerous game. They would not be silent victims. They would be players. The Council had sent a threat. Now Earth would send a warning, and it would arrive at hypersonic speed. The meeting ended, but the silence remained. Every leader walked out knowing the world might burn. Every scientist left with heavy shoulders, carrying the weight of billions. Every soldier tightened his jaw, ready for orders. The chamber emptied, but one truth echoed through the steel walls. Humans had chosen defiance. The stars had sent fear, but Earth had answered with fire. And in the darkness, the future waited. The chamber did not sleep that night. After the leaders had spoken, after the decision had been made, a smaller group remained. These were the generals, the scientists, the engineers, the ones who would turn words into action. The plan had no name, but it carried the weight of Earth. It was not just a military plan, it was a message carved in fire. The scientist with gray hair spoke again, her eyes sharp under the dim lights. "We cannot strike them with our fleets, for we have no fleets to match theirs," she said. "We cannot strike them with our armies, for we cannot reach their worlds. But we can reach their pride. We can strike their arrogance." The generals listened, their jaws tight. One leaned forward, his voice low. "You speak of a missile." "Yes," she replied. "A missile not to destroy, but to deliver." On the screens, designs began to appear. Not ordinary rockets, not simple warheads. This was something faster, sharper, something the aliens would never expect. A hypersonic weapon, built in secret labs, tested in silence, hidden from the world. It was more than metal and fuel, it was a symbol, a warning that humanity could send across the stars. One young engineer, his hands trembling, spoke with excitement. "At hypersonic speed, no shield can stop it, no defense can catch it. It will reach them before they even know it is coming." A general frowned. "And what happens when it arrives? Do we strike them?" The old scientist shook her head. "No, not strike. Not yet. It carries only a message, a voice, a promise." The room grew heavy with silence. They all understood the risk. If the missile failed, Earth would look weak. If the missile hit too hard, Earth would invite total war. But if it worked, if it simply arrived, it would tell the Council something more powerful than words. It would tell them that humans could reach them. One by one, the leaders signed their approval. The order spread like fire through secret networks. Factories that once built warplanes were awakened at night. Labs deep under mountains hummed with new energy. Men and women who thought their work was for defense now realized it was for survival. In hidden hangars, pieces of the weapon came together. Sheets of metal bent under sparks. Engines roared in testing. The missile was sleek, long, deadly in appearance, but its warhead was not a bomb. Instead, at its heart, it carried a chamber with a simple device. A projector, a transmitter, and one recorded message. The face of a human general staring into the eyes of the galaxy. "We do not bow, we do not kneel. If you threaten Earth again, the next message will not be empty." The engineers worked without rest. Every screw tightened, every wire checked. The generals paced the hangars like shadows. Soldiers stood guard, their rifles ready, though they faced no enemy but time. The air was filled with tension, every breath heavy. Everyone knew they were building not only a missile, but a piece of history. Outside, the world continued in ignorance. Children played in parks. Lovers laughed in cafes. The stars shone above, cold and bright, never revealing their secrets. But beneath the Earth, in the hidden bases, humanity's heart beat louder and faster. Every second brought them closer to the launch. As the weapon neared completion, a final meeting was called. The generals and scientists gathered again. A massive screen showed the missile standing tall, shining under floodlights. It looked less like a machine and more like a spear aimed at the stars. The president's voice carried through the chamber. "This is not an act of war," he said slowly. "This is a warning that we are not prey, a warning that Earth will not kneel." Some still doubted. "What if they see this as provocation?" one leader asked. "They will," another answered. "But they will also see our courage, and courage is something they do not understand." The scientist stepped forward one last time. "Fear is their weapon," she said. "But fear is also ours. Let us remind them that humans are not easy prey. Let us remind them that a cornered human will fight with fire." The plan was set. The missile would be launched from a secret base, its course aimed not at a planet, not at a ship, but at the very heart of the Galactic Council space. It would travel faster than sound, faster than sight, faster than pride. It would arrive carrying not destruction, but a voice, a human voice, defiant and unbroken. The countdown began. Days turned into hours, hours into minutes. The engineers prayed to machines, the generals prayed to history, the leaders prayed to the silent stars. Humanity stood at the edge of something greater than war. Not an attack, but a warning. Not a surrender, but a challenge. The plan of hypersonic warning was ready, and the universe was about to listen. The night was darker than usual. Clouds covered the moon, and the stars seemed to hide behind a curtain of silence. On the surface, the world looked calm, as if nothing was happening. But deep beneath the earth, in a hidden base surrounded by mountains, history waited. The missile stood ready. It was taller than a house, shining under floodlights, engines humming like a beast in its cage. Soldiers guarded the chamber. Engineers checked every wire. Generals stared at the screens with eyes that had forgotten sleep. This was not just metal and fuel. This was Earth's voice, Earth's warning, Earth's defiance. The control room was filled with quiet tension. Rows of operators sat at their stations, fingers moving across buttons and switches. Every screen glowed with green numbers. Every number was life or death. The countdown clock stood frozen at 60 minutes, waiting for the order. Silence stretched heavy, broken only by the hum of machines. Far above, the president and world leaders watched through encrypted feeds. No speeches, no debates, only waiting. Each face was pale, each pair of hands tight. They all knew, once the missile left the Earth, there was no turning back. Earth would either rise in pride or fall into fire. At last, the order came. The general in charge stood tall, his voice calm though his chest burned with fire. "Begin final sequence," he said. The operators moved as one. Screens flickered, alarms blinked, and the base roared to life. The countdown began. 60 minutes turned into 59, 58, 57. The room breathed in rhythm with the ticking numbers. In the hangar, steam rose, engines warmed, and the ground trembled. The missile seemed alive, like a giant heart beating faster and faster. Its tip pointed toward the sky, toward the stars, toward the council that thought humans would bow. But humans would not bow. They would speak, and they would speak at hypersonic speed. Outside, the mountains were silent. Winds whispered across the trees. Birds stirred in the darkness, not knowing the world was about to change. A single road led to the base, empty, guarded by shadows. The night hid everything, but soon the night would split apart. Inside the control room, voices reported. Engines stable. Guidance system online. Trajectory locked. The general nodded, his jaw tight. Proceed. The clock ticked down. 10 minutes left. The leaders watching across the world leaned closer to their screens. The scientist with gray hair closed her eyes, whispering words no one heard. The engineer who built the core of the missile pressed his hands together. Not in work, but in prayer. 5 minutes. The base shook as the engines roared louder. 3 minutes. Soldiers gripped their rifles, though there was no enemy in sight. 1 minute. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath. The general raised his hand, his voice like steel. Launch! The ground cracked with thunder. Fire burst from the silo. The missile rose like a spear of flame, splitting the night, turning darkness into day. The mountains shook. The skies roared. Animals scattered. Birds cried. The earth itself seemed to tremble as its warning rose to the stars. People across the world saw the light. From cities, from villages, from oceans, eyes turned upward. Some thought it was a star falling. Others thought it was the end of days. But those who knew watched with pride, with fear, with hope. Earth had spoken. Earth had launched its voice into the heavens. The missile climbed higher and higher, breaking the sound barrier, breaking the sky. Hypersonic speed tore through the atmosphere, faster than any eye could follow, faster than any defense could catch. It vanished into the dark, into the endless ocean of space. In the control room, silence returned. The screens showed only numbers, speed, trajectory, distance. The missile was gone from sight, but not from hope. Every heartbeat in that room was heavy. They had done their part, now the stars would decide the rest. On Earth, leaders sat back, exhausted but unbroken. Some whispered, "It is done." Others closed their eyes, already fearing the response. But deep inside, a spark of pride burned. For the first time, humanity had shouted back at the galaxy. Not with words, not with surrender, but with fire and courage. The missile soared further, engines burning, carried no bomb, no destruction. Only a chamber, only a message, a face of a general staring with unflinching eyes, a voice that said, "We do not bow, we do not kneel. If you threaten Earth again, the next message will not be empty." The missile was more than metal, it was defiance. And as it sped beyond the reach of Earth, past satellites, past orbits, into the void where stars burned cold, it carried the weight of every human dream. The launch was not the end. It was the beginning. Back on Earth, in the secret chamber, the old scientist whispered to herself, "They will hear us now." And for the first time since the threat, she smiled. The launch had broken the silence of fear. The stars would listen whether they wanted to or not. Far from Earth, beyond the quiet of the solar system, beyond the orbits of wandering comets and the cold silence of empty space, the Galactic Council ruled. Their fleets stretched across star systems. Their banners hung above conquered worlds. Their power felt endless. To them, Earth was nothing, a young world of dirt and water, a primitive race. They sent threats because they expected silence in return. But silence did not come. It began with a ripple on their scanners. The outpost stationed at the edge of Council space picked it up first. A soldier of the reptilian kind sat lazily at his console, half asleep. Then alarms screamed. Red lights flashed. He sat upright, his scales shivering. "Object incoming." The system shouted in a cold mechanical voice. "Speed exceeds defense thresholds." The soldier blinked in disbelief. No pirate, no rebel, no rival empire had ever crossed into this space at such velocity. He called his commander, his claws tapping the controls. "It is fast. Faster than anything in our records," he whispered. The commander laughed at first. "No ship moves like that. Check again." But the alarms did not lie. Across Council territory, more scanners lit up. Signals rippled through the defense network. Every station reported the same impossible truth. An object was slicing through the void at hypersonic speed. It was small, no larger than a single ship's weapon. Yet it moved like a storm, untouchable, unstoppable. Panic spread in whispers. What is it? Whose is it? The council convened quickly, their chamber glowing with alien fire. Rulers of insectoid empires, reptilian lords, crystalline queens, and machine overlords gathered around a vast table of light. They argued in voices sharp and proud. "Impossible, no primitive world could build such a thing," one said. "Perhaps it is from our rivals." Another hissed. "Perhaps it is a natural object, a comet, a star fragment." A machine voice buzzed. But deep down, in the silence that followed, they all felt it. This was no accident, no comet, no random drift of rock. This was aimed. Closer and closer it came. Their defense fleets scrambled, ships turning to intercept. Lasers fired, missiles launched, but the object slipped through like light through fingers. It moved too fast. Shields were useless, weapons too slow. Admirals screamed orders. Crews panicked. But the object ignored them all. It was not here to fight, it was here to arrive. In the great capital of the council, the object finally slowed. For the first time, its engines dimmed, its fire cooled. It glided like a spear of steel into the heart of their space. Defense turrets surrounded it. Fleets circled, weapons aimed. Yet none fired, because fear froze their hands. The object stopped before the council chamber itself. In the skies above their world, every citizen watched in awe and terror. A small vessel, smaller than their warships, smaller than their stations, had done what no empire had ever dared. It had pierced the council's pride. The council chamber shook as a light burst from the object. A holographic image filled the air. The faces of alien rulers turned pale, their eyes wide. For the first time, they looked into the eyes of a human. It was not a god, not a demon, not a beast. It was only a human general, scar across his face, steel in his eyes. He spoke in a voice steady, calm, heavy with meaning. "We do not bow," he said. "We do not kneel. You sent us a threat, but we send you a warning. If you threaten Earth again, the next message will not be empty." The chamber fell into silence. No alien spoke. No machine word. No claw moved. The words echoed in their minds, heavy, sharp, unforgettable. This was not the cry of a weak species, not the plea of frightened children. This was the voice of a predator refusing to yield. Some rulers trembled, their minds racing with fear. Others burned with rage, demanding war. "Destroy them now," one insectoid queen hissed. "They dare to spit on the council," a reptilian lord roared. But another voice, older, colder, rose. "Do not be blind," it said. "If they can reach us, they can hurt us. If they can hurt us, then war with them may cost more than victory." The chamber split in argument. Pride against caution, arrogance against fear. Some wanted to crush Earth at once, to burn it as a lesson to others. But others whispered of patience, of danger, of respect. The humans had changed the game. They had forced the mighty council to think twice. Above the alien capital, the object burned one last time. Its engines flared, and it shattered itself into fragments, leaving only silence behind. The message was delivered, the warning complete. No destruction, no death, only defiance. The citizens of the council looked to the skies that night. Some whispered that a new enemy had been born. Others whispered that a new equal had arrived. For the first time in centuries, the council felt something rare. They felt uncertain, and across the galaxy, Earth waited. They did not know yet what the council would decide, but they knew one truth. Their warning had been heard. Their voice had reached the stars, and the stars had listened. The fragments of the missile drifted in silence, tiny pieces of metal glowing faintly against the endless black. But its core, its true heart, had already been delivered. The message, carried inside, now played in the chamber of the Galactic Council. The hologram flickered once, then grew stable. A human face filled the air, sharp eyes, stern jaw. A man who spoke not for himself, but for billions. The council stared, their alien forms frozen, their pride unsettled. The voice began, calm but unshaken. "This is Earth," it said. "We are not your servants, we are not your prey, we do not bow, we do not kneel. You sent us a threat. Now we send you a warning. If you raise your hand against us again, the next message will not be empty." The words echoed through the chamber, bouncing across walls of crystal and steel. Every ruler heard them, every translator confirmed them. No mistake, no error, the meaning was clear. A world that was supposed to tremble had spoken with fire. For a moment silence ruled. The insectoid queen clicked her mandibles, her black eyes wide. "This is insolence," she hissed. "No, this is madness," growled a reptilian warlord, his claws scraping the table. But the crystalline monarch, her body glowing faintly with light, whispered, "It is courage." The machine overlords processed the words again and again, their cold voices echoing. Statistical probability of deception. Low. Threat capacity. Uncertain. Potential for escalation. Significant. The numbers unsettled even the machines. The council chamber erupted in argument. "They must be crushed before others follow their example," one shouted. "They must be taught fear," another growled. But a softer voice, old and wise, rose above the chaos. It belonged to a being whose people had ruled the stars before the council was formed. "They have already taught us fear," it said, and silence fell again. The message repeated itself once more. Not loud, not screaming, only steady, the human face unshaken, the words like stone. We do not bow, we do not kneel. If you threaten Earth again, the next message will not be empty. The alien rulers looked at one another. For the first time in centuries, the mighty council felt divided. Half demanded destruction, half demanded caution. No one agreed, because deep inside, each of them knew the truth. If humans could send this warning, then what else could they do? Beyond the council chamber, across the capital world, the broadcast spread. Citizens saw it in the sky, the human face staring at them with unbroken will. Fear rippled through the streets. Whispers passed like fire. A new enemy, some said. A new equal, others whispered. The message had not only reached rulers, it had reached the people. Back in the chamber, rage grew hot. The insectoid queen slammed her claws against the table. They are dirt. They are nothing. If we allow this insult, we show weakness, we must strike now. But the crystalline monarch shook her shining head. Perhaps weakness lies not in listening, but in ignoring. Perhaps strength lies in patience. The reptilian warlord roared. They threaten us openly, and you speak of patience? They should be ash by now. But the machine voices replied in unity. Unknown potential detected. Further analysis recommended. Immediate destruction may lead to unintended consequences. The chamber broke into two halves. On one side, the proud and the furious. On the other, the cautious and the calculating. No decision was reached. Only fire in their eyes and fear in their hearts. The message ended. The hologram faded. Only silence remained. But the silence was heavier than any weapon. Pressed down on them, it lingered. For the first time, the council realized that Earth was not a world to dismiss. It was a world to consider. It was a world to fear. In the shadows of the chamber, some rulers whispered in secret. What if they rise faster than expected? What if they are not weak at all? What if they are the future? Others whispered different fears. What if more worlds rise because of them? What if rebellion spreads? Earth's defiance could burn across the stars like a fire we cannot control. Above the alien capital, the debris of the missile still glowed faintly. Fragments of human defiance floating like sparks against the black. Every eye that looked to the sky that night remembered the words. We do not bow, we do not kneel. Back on Earth, no one knew the council's reaction yet. The generals waited. The scientists prayed. The leaders hoped. They did not know if war would come, but they knew one truth. Their message had reached its target. Their warning had been delivered, and the galaxy could never ignore them again. The council adjourned for the night, their arguments unfinished. But as they left, one thought remained in every mind. The humans had spoken. The humans had dared. The humans had declared themselves not as prey, but as players, and in the silent corners of the galaxy, the game had already changed. The Galactic Council chamber did not sleep. Even when the message from Earth had ended, even when the hologram had faded, the air inside still burned with tension. Rulers of 1,000 species stared at one another, their pride shaken, their arrogance cracked. The words of the human general still echoed in their minds. We do not bow, we do not kneel. Some rulers demanded blood. They must be destroyed before they grow stronger, roared the reptilian warlord. His claws scraping sparks from the table. Crush them quickly. Show the galaxy they are nothing. Hissed the insectoid queen, her mandibles clattering with fury. But others whispered caution. They reached us, said the crystalline monarch, her voice like glass. They reached our heart with a single weapon. If we underestimate them, we may lose more than pride. The chamber became a storm of voices, every word louder than the last. Some spoke of honor, others of fear. Some demanded fire, others demanded patience. The machines, cold and logical, calculated endlessly, their voices buzzing. Probability of escalation. High. Probability of uncontrollable rebellion in other worlds. Significant. Recommendation. Delay immediate action until further data collected. At last, the High Chancellor, a being older than most empires, rose from his throne. His voice was deep, slow, and heavy with authority. "Silence," he commanded. The chamber obeyed, though rage still burned in many eyes. "The humans have spoken," the chancellor said. "They have shown courage, they have shown defiance, but they have not shown power. We must decide not only what to do with Earth, but what to show the rest of the galaxy." He paused, his eyes scanning the rulers before him. "If we crush them now, rebellion will spread. If we ignore them, arrogance may grow. We must choose carefully." The debate stretched on for hours. Arguments clashed. Threats filled the air. But no agreement came. The council was divided, perhaps more divided than ever before. Outside the chamber, whispers spread across the alien capital. Citizens who had seen the human message spoke in fear. "Who are they? How could such a young world reach us?" Some feared invasion, others feared war. For the first time, the people of the council felt uncertain about their rulers. Back on Earth, silence was heavier than any weapon. The missile had been launched, the message delivered, but no reply had come. In secret chambers, leaders waited. Some feared destruction, others hoped for peace. Every hour that passed without a response was another hour of dread. The gray-haired scientist sat alone in her lab, her hands resting on the cold metal of her desk. She whispered to herself, "They heard us, now we wait." Her heart trembled, but her eyes stayed sharp. She knew silence could mean many things. Fear, anger, or preparation. In military bases, soldiers stood ready, missiles armed, aircraft fueled, submarines waiting in the deep seas. The world held its breath. Ordinary people did not know the full truth. They saw the strange light in the sky on launch night. They heard rumors, but they did not know the stakes. Children laughed in playgrounds. Lovers walked under city lights. But above them, the fate of Earth hung in silence. Days passed. The council still argued, still divided. Finally, a decision was made, not of unity but of compromise. The chancellor spoke once more. "We will not destroy Earth, not yet," he said. "Instead, we will send them a message of our own. Not a threat this time, not a war, but a reminder of who we are." The insectoid queen hissed in anger. "You show weakness," she spat. But the crystalline monarch answered softly, "No, we show patience. Patience can be stronger than rage." And the machines hummed in agreement. Calculated delay increases long-term advantage. So the council prepared a reply. Not an invasion fleet, not a storm of fire, but a single vessel. A ship designed not for war, but for communication. Yet inside it, hidden deep, were weapons enough to burn a continent. It was both a messenger and a sword, the perfect symbol of the council's pride. The ship was launched, engines roaring as it left the alien capital. It carried diplomats, soldiers, and machines. This mission, to speak, to watch, to judge, and if necessary, to strike. Back on Earth, satellites picked up the signal. Something was coming, something vast, something powerful. The generals gathered quickly. The leaders returned to their secret chamber. "They are answering," the president said, his voice grim. The room fell silent. No one knew if this answer meant survival or destruction. In the skies, the alien ship grew closer. Its shadow stretched across the stars. Its engines glowed with colors no human eyes had ever seen. It was not just a vessel, it was a message. The council had heard Earth, and now Earth would hear the council. The world trembled. Some prayed, some cursed, some stood ready. The waiting was over. The response had begun. The alien ship appeared first as a shadow, a dark shape crossing the stars, silent but vast. Then its lights came alive, glowing like suns. It was not just a ship, it was a moving fortress, carrying the power of the Galactic Council itself. On Earth, the skies were clear that night. Satellites tracked its path. Radars screamed warnings. Screens in hidden bases glowed with red alarms. The generals stood shoulder to shoulder, their faces hard. "They are here," one whispered. No one spoke after that. Every word felt too small for what approached. The ship slowed as it neared the blue planet. Its presence cast a shadow over the atmosphere. People across the world saw a strange star, brighter than the moon, crawling across the night sky. Some cheered, thinking it was a sign of peace. Others trembled, certain it was the end. In the council ship, alien diplomats prepared their message. They carried words of warning, of pride, of control. But behind them, soldiers stood ready, their weapons humming with deadly power. The council had come to speak, but it had also come to judge. Deep underground, in Earth's secret chamber, leaders gathered once more. Screens showed the alien vessel larger than mountains. The president's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight of fear. "This is it," he said. "We will hear their answer." The gray-haired scientist leaned forward, her hands clasped tight. "They did not attack at once," she whispered. "That means they are uncertain. That means they are watching us." The general beside her grunted. "Or they are only waiting to strike harder." The alien ship entered orbit. Its engines dimmed, its lights pulsed. Then a voice thundered across every frequency, every channel, every device. It was deep, heavy, and filled with power. "Humans of Earth," it said, "you have spoken your defiance. You have dared to challenge the council. Now we speak." The world froze. In homes, in streets, in secret bases, billions listened. Children stared at glowing screens. Workers stopped in silence. Leaders leaned closer. The entire planet held its breath. The alien voice continued. "You are small, you are young, but you are not without courage. For this we acknowledge you." The words sent a ripple of shock through the chamber. Some gasped, some whispered. Acknowledgement from the council was rare, almost unthinkable, but the voice grew colder. "Do not mistake courage for strength. You live only because we allow it. If you strike again, if you rise too high, we will burn your skies and silence your world forever." The chamber filled with silence. The message was clear. A warning returned for a warning. Pride against pride. The hologram flickered to life. An alien figure stood tall, its body a fusion of armor and flesh, its eyes burning like fire. "This is your one chance," it said. "Kneel or stand and face the storm of the council." The image faded, leaving only silence. On Earth, leaders exchanged looks heavy with doubt. Some whispered of surrender, others demanded war. But the gray-haired scientist rose slowly, her voice calm but sharp. "They fear us," she said. "That is why they came with words instead of fire. If they truly believed we were weak, we would already be ash." The general nodded, his voice low. "They gave us a choice, but it was not mercy, it was hesitation." The president looked around the chamber, his face carved in stone. "Then we must decide, kneel or stand." Above the Earth, the alien ship waited, its weapons silent but ready, its diplomats watching, its soldiers eager. The galaxy held its breath with them. Would Earth bend or would Earth rise? The people of the world did not know the full truth, but they felt it in the air. In markets, in schools, in fields, in cities, whispers spread. Will we bow? Will we fight? The question burned in every heart. In the chamber, silence grew heavy. No answer was spoken, not yet. But one truth was clear. The council had come, the message had been delivered, and the game was no longer hidden. Earth stood at the edge of history, one choice away from survival or destruction. The alien ship circled the planet like a predator, its shadow falling across oceans, across deserts, across mountains. The stars above watched in silence, and humanity, for the first time, stood truly equal to the galaxy. Not in power, but in courage. The story did not end with peace, nor with war. It ended with silence, a silence heavier than any weapon. For in that silence lived the question, what would Earth choose? And what would the galaxy become once that choice was made?